Coming up this week on the Special Chronicles show, episode 432, ComEd EnergyForce Ambassador Lisa Noble from Special Olympics, Illinois, stopped by the podcast for our 2-episode series finale this week of our ComEd EnergyForce podcast series in celebration of the 10th anniversary of the EnergyForce program. Coming up this week, our series finale on SpecialChronicles.com starts right The mission of how I started podcasting and started Special Chronicles is giving respect and voice to those of us with special needs. I became an athlete leader of Special Olympics Illinois, and when I recorded the audio of the speeches that I was given and putting those up as podcasts, I soon received messages of encouragement, and I learned that it was a powerful platform and really helping to make a difference in people's lives. 12 years ago, I didn't expect that anybody would want to even listen to me. We have over 42,316 listeners per month. It's a humbling experience. I'm really grateful to make a difference in other people's lives.
Is Special Chronicles, giving respect and a voice to people with special needs.
Podcasting since 2008. This is the show where we're broadcasting disability stories from an insider's perspective, and we are giving a voice to people with special needs. This is your weekly guide to find and joy, acceptance, and inclusion.
I shudder thinking how the world can be so cruel. I lend my voice to those who can't. It's time we try, it's time we care, it's time we stand. It starts with a voice.
Welcome back to the Special Chronicles show. My name is Daniel, founder of Special Chronicles and the Southern Shriver International Global Messenger. And I should add for this series, the ComEd EnergyForce Ambassador. Among many other things, if you want to find out everything that a little bit more about all the different titles that I have and that I do in to make a difference to other people in society. At Podman is where you can follow me on Instagram and on my Instagram page at Podman. That's PODMANDAN at Podman is you can click on a link in my Instagram bio where you can read a little bit more about me if you are new to this show, because we might have some of you new. So excited to, as we this week, we're recording this on the 29th of June, 2021, Tuesday, and it is episode 432. This is part 11 of our ComEd EnergyForce series. This week we have 2 days, two back-to-back, two episode series finale as we conclude this 12-episode series that we've been doing for these past 2.5 months of this ComEd EnergyForce series. Right off the bat, we want to just get a few housekeeping things out of the way to let you know that the Special Chronicles show is presented by the ComEd EnergyForce Ambassador Program. Learn more about the nation's first energy efficiency education program taught by people with disabilities, including video resources and original podcast series that you're listening to right now, and external resource links at SpecialChronicles.com/ComEd. Again, that's SpecialChronicles.com/ComEd. And help us fund our weekly podcasts and live shows on Special Chronicles so we can continue to tell empowering stories behind the microphone to further our mission and vision, giving respect and voice to people with special needs. Please join our community supporters and make a gift today. SpecialChronicles.com/ComEd. Again, that's SpecialChronicles.com/give. SpecialChronicles.com/give. I know the the links. And just briefly, at the $250 gift level, if you make a $250 gift to this podcast, Special Chronicles, Tim Shriver has a thank you gift. Tim Shriver will send you a free autographed copy of his new book called To Unite, Voices of Hope and Awakening. And to make the $250 donation to Special Chronicles, all you have to do is really simple. Grab your phone and text GIVE 250 to 833-953-2598, or simply online at SpecialChronicles.com/give. That's SpecialChronicles.com/give. And SpecialChronicles.com is where you can go to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, subscribe to all of our podcasts. And I have not only got coffee in the studio today, but I've got some water, and I just opened it yesterday. Our guest has the same water bottle, but it's a ComEd EnergyForce 10th anniversary water bottle. I do not know how many ounces, so if somebody's listening, know how many ounces this water bottle is. If you listen to the podcast, go check out the video on YouTube or Facebook, and you can see this water bottle. I shared it on my Instagram stories yesterday, and so let me know how many ounces that is. Maybe our guest knows. But please, because this 12-episode series is all in celebration of the 10th anniversary of the ComEd EnergyForce Ambassador Program, in which Special Chronicles is proud to partner with this program. And SpecialChronicles.com/EnergyForce is where you can listen to all of our past episodes of this series. It's been really empowering. It's been a lot of work, but really empowering and really impactful to hear from a couple of staff and our fellow ambassadors, which we'll get to right now. So joining us on the Special Chronicles show this week, it's been a long time coming and last minute guest, but long time coming. I'm glad we'll finally be able to have her on the show. Please put your virtual hands together as we welcome our friend and your friend, fellow podcaster on this network, on the Special Chronicles Network, Lisa Noble, to the Special Chronicles show. Welcome, Lisa.
Oh, thank you, Daniel. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so excited to have you on the program today. Like I said in the intro, it was we've been wanting to have you on for a while. We're glad to have your podcast, The Amazing Individuals, as a part of the Special Chronicles Network lineup of shows. But first, before we get into on this show a little bit more about your backstory and a little bit more about your involvement with Special Olympics Illinois that we're both involved in. We're both on the Athlete Leadership Council, executive leadership team, as well as your involvement in Special Olympics. But before we get to that, why don't you introduce yourself to, I'm sure we have some new listeners. Tell us about what disability you were diagnosed with, your connection to our disability community, and your role at the ComEd EnergyForce Ambassador Program.
Sure, Daniel. So my name is Lisa Noble. I've been married for 12 years now and my husband is actually an athlete as well with Special Olympics. He's been involved for over 40 years. And he's the one that actually got me involved in Special Olympics. I have autism spectrum disorder is what my disability is. And, my involvement with ComEd is just through Special Olympics Illinois. So, and I enjoy doing it. So
awesome, yeah, and I know we'll get into a little bit more later on in this episode about how much we both love Special Olympics Illinois and the ComEd EnergyForce Ambassador Program. But first, we're going to, in just a few minutes, take a short sponsor break. When we come back from the break, we will, because if it wasn't for our supporters, if it wasn't for partners like ComEd, we wouldn't be able to be behind the microphone, because it costs money to do these live shows, get the podcast uploaded, get all the lights, the LED lights on in the studio. I mean, like, that's how you're able to see us, is with the lights. And so we'll get into all that. Much more of Lisa's impactful story is coming up after the break. Right here, you are listening to the Special Chronicles show on SpecialChronicles.com. Our guest is Lisa Noble, fellow ComEd EnergyForce Ambassador and fellow athlete leader from Special Olympics Illinois. much more Lisa's story when the podcast continues right here on SpecialChronicles.com. Support for Special Chronicles comes from listeners like you. As an independent public media podcast, Special Chronicles will always be there for you. Now we're asking you to be there for us. As a nonprofit independent media organization, we can only make programs like Special Chronicles with listener support. Our programs provide weekly, candid, honest, and inspiring conversations about the people with disabilities community that creates awareness, support, and advocacy within each week's episode. Listeners tell us our shows are an enjoyable and necessary podcast for the intellectual and developmental disability community and everyone else who is able to listen to stories about life from a different angle. Please, if you and your family love our weekly podcast, make a one-time, monthly, or annual gift of thanks today. Support this podcast at SpecialChronicles.com/give. That's SpecialChronicles.com/give. Our guest on the Special Chronicles show this week is Lisa Noble. And Lisa, let's now get into the full segment where we talk about your backstory as an ambassador not just for ComEd EnergyForce Ambassador Program, but also as an athlete ambassador for Special Olympics Illinois. I know from, and I should probably listen to a little bit more of your podcast episodes, but I know from listening to some of from a few of your earlier episodes, and I forgot which episode it was, but it was it was the one that was titled Lisa's Story, and so you shared a little bit of your story. I think even if people go online to SpecialChronicles.com/amazing individuals, or just go to SpecialChronicles.com, click on podcasts, and then click on amazing individuals. People will we have that episode is mentioned near the top of your podcast page on SpecialChronicles.com/amazing individuals. But I know a little bit of your backstory, but for any new listeners, why don't you tell us a little bit about your backstory in your early years growing up with a disability?
Oh, sure. So, unfortunately, at the time I was growing up, it wasn't as there wasn't as many supports as there are now. So, I was always struggling in school to fit in and find out, why I was struggling. And actually, there was a point where I was told that I was never going to graduate high school and I was never going to have a successful life. So, and then, when I was 2, my parents divorced, and I stopped talking for a while, and I only talked to basically my mom and my grandfather. But luckily nowadays there's more support out there for autism spectrum disorder. I was lucky enough where I went to a high school that had supports, or started to have supports out there that helped me, where I was able to go to regular classes as well as mainstreamed. And I proved everybody wrong. I did graduate high school. I mean, I live on my own, and I'm married to a wonderful guy for 12 years. So
awesome. Well, and so what we hear a lot, and we've had other people like our friend Bree. There's another famous self-advocate, Kelly. Kelly Main. I forgot I'm going to announce his last name. Kelly Mag.
That sounds familiar, Daniel.
Yeah, he's pretty popular, at least in our disability community. But and I don't know if this is exactly true about Bree's story. I forgot we've had Bree on a few times, including in coming up again as a returning guest, just in the middle of July. But a lot of people, as we know, with autism start out nonverbal and then, sometimes stay nonverbal, but then would then hopefully with support then kind of become verbal. But as we know, and I guess this gets into why your story is unique, whether it's autism or with developmental delays and learning disabilities like myself, or any disability that we'll diagnose with, there's no intellectual disability, no disability that's the same. Everybody might have a similar diagnosis, but every diagnosis is a little bit different. And so the fact that you said that you talked when you were young, and then you were nonverbal, and then with support in high school, and then later, I'm assuming later in Special Olympics and athlete leadership, later with support from high school all the way through today, through the athlete leadership programs, you were then you went from talking to not talking to nonverbal to talking again. So you kind of bounced back and forth a little bit. Is that right?
Sort of. So, I was nonverbal at the age of 2, just for a little bit. It was, some of it was my autism, but some of it was also, me dealing with this, divorce with my parents. So, because, like Bree probably could tell you, people with autism, even with any disability, don't do well with change very well, and that's especially that kind of change. That's a major life change.
Yeah.
So I would only talk, like I said, to my grandfather and my mom, but mostly my grandfather. But with the help of my grandfather and my mom getting me the right therapy or working with me, I was able to kind of get out of that. And I think my mom said I was like 4 when I finally, felt more comfortable talking to some people. So.
Awesome. Well, once again, our guest is Lisa Noble, fellow ComEd EnergyForce Ambassador and fellow athlete leader from Special Olympics Illinois. And let's get into a little bit more about your backstory and some of the, as we all know, we all have challenges, and as we all know, because of our disability, we have challenges, but then also it's because of the disability that we are diagnosed with that we have joys and accomplishments that come as a result, that come because of the disability that we were diagnosed with. If it wasn't for the challenges and the developmental delays and the then we wouldn't be able to have the joys and accomplishments. Hopefully, other people like yourself, hopefully other people agree with what I just said. But if you don't agree, then just email feedback@SpecialChronicles.com and let us know. Feedback@SpecialChronicles.com. Just let us know if you don't believe what I said. But hopefully, that's what I believe. But with that, talk to us a little bit about some of the challenges as well as the joys and accomplishments because of your disability.
Sure. So a couple of my challenges were just, struggling to fit in through school and, society. Because when I was growing up, they didn't have the supports like we have today. But also sometimes I had a difficult time fitting in with my family too, because I come from a large family on my mom's side, and sometimes when we get together, the noise gets to me, or because there's so many of us, it gets to me as well. So, but what I basically do is I've learned to, when I'm in a situation like that, I just take maybe a 5-minute break, and, kind of just relax and things, and just calm down, and then, go right back to, what I was doing. But, and, some of the other challenges were, sometimes I had money issues. I would have a hard time handling money, but, with the help of some of great organizations that I've belonged to, and, my mom and my husband's sister, I've kind of figured out a system that works for both of us to manage that better. And just just everyday challenges, but we have like a really good um, um, community here for like, especially with Northwestern. We have some of the students actually help us coach and stuff, and with doing that, they've reached out to us to become friends and help us out. And for example, the volleyball team, for the women's volleyball team, um, they've had Kurt and I several times helping out with their practices and stuff. And if we need anything, they'll always be here to support us. So even though you have challenges, you always find a certain way that maybe you might not overcome it totally, but with several supports, you might be able, you can have tools that'll help you kind of live with it, if that makes more sense.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Awesome. You mentioned one thing, and we're a little late to take our next break, but we'll delay the break just slightly a little bit, because I want to touch on something that you just said, and that is, you said that you had some money issues and daily life issues, and I think that's something that a lot of us with developmental delays, a lot of us with intellectual disabilities, challenge with, and those of us that are young adults like ourselves in our 20s and 30s, we are dealing with on a daily basis right now. And I think there's lots of different services out there that they can support us. But I want to briefly mention that there was a Better Money Habits 2-part workshop that we did thanks to Bank of America. I originally took part of it in at our SSIGM training in Washington, D.C., but then we took part in it again when Bank of America offered it to our athlete leadership program here in Special Olympics, Illinois. And then those other like professional and personal development leadership training that we have in Special Olympics, Illinois. So I say that to say is the personal and development, the personal and professional development leadership training, as well as the Better Money Habits, thanks to Bank of America. Has that played any role into helping you better manage your money and daily life skills?
I think so. And even though, there's been some issues that I've had to switch different people sometimes, out of all that, you learn, as you go. And like you had said, with the Better Money Habits, when they did that presentation, it helped kind of allow me to kind of figure out what would work for us and what doesn't, because maybe what works for my husband and I doesn't work for everybody else. So and it helps when you learn about how to budget money better, because I think in our community more than anything else, and especially during the pandemic, but sometimes we get brushed aside, and and they think that because we have a disability we don't need money, or we don't need to learn how to budget money. And then people get into all sorts of trouble and stuff. So I think the main one that helped was, like I said, the Better Money Habits that we had gone through and I helped teach. So.
Awesome. Yeah. And we could spend probably all day talking about this, but yeah, it's really empowering that we have companies like Bank of America that are able to partner with us. Yes, they partner with Special Olympics, but they partner with organizations that directly support us. And
exactly,
so, yeah.
Exactly, and that they take the time to kind of, and they didn't have to, but they take the time to realize that everybody's not the same, and we struggle. Yeah. Each one struggles with different things separately. So
yeah, it might not be directly part of the job, but it is sort of like they they're able to really give us guidance, give us support that can help us. We're going to go ahead and take another short break. When we come back, we'll get to much more of Lisa's impactful story. Continues on. We're talking about right after the break right here on SpecialChronicles.com. And this break, we are going to, this episode is brought to you by our friends at StreamYard. StreamYard is the easiest way to create professional live streams. StreamYard is a live streaming studio in your browser, interview guests, share your screen, and much more. Stream directly to Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and other platforms. Sign up for StreamYard and get $10 in credit with our referral link at SpecialChronicles.com/StreamYard tutorial. Again, that's SpecialChronicles.com/StreamYard tutorial. That's StreamYardTutorial. That's all one word. SpecialChronicles.com/StreamYard. The link is on the screen if you're watching us right now on Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, or on if you listen to the podcast, it's in the description below. So please go to please sign up for StreamYard, and you can create a professional and easy live stream. Your guests can join so easily. SpecialChronicles.com/StreamYard tutorial, and we love StreamYard here at Special Chronicles. And with that, we'll bring our guest back on the show, on the Special Chronicles show. Our friend Lisa Noble, fellow ComEd EnergyForce Ambassador, fellow athlete leader from Special Olympics Illinois, joins the podcast live this week right here on SpecialChronicles.com. Welcome back, Lisa.
Well, thank you.
And for our listeners, and I didn't add about your podcast in the show notes, but maybe we'll touch on that a little on in the next segment. But Lisa also has a show on a podcast on the Special Chronicles Network. Go to SpecialChronicles.com, click on podcast, and then click on Amazing Individuals. Get all the links to subscribe to her podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Apple Podcasts, the iHeartRadio app, and your favorite place to listen to podcasts. With that, we'll let's now get into a little bit more about your this next segment about your story, your journey as an ambassador, and tell us now how you first got involved in Special Olympics Illinois. How did you first get involved?
Sure. So, like I said before, my husband's been involved for over 40 years, and I had multiple surgeries because I had really bad arthritis and things, and I was just getting over having my second neck fusion, and we were trying to figure out something for me to do, and he encouraged me to go and talk to his coach, and from there, that's just how I got involved in Special Olympics. And I also heard it from a friend of mine that I went to school with. She had been involved in Special Olympics and also in their athlete leadership program, and thought maybe it'd be a good thing for me to belong to. So
awesome. It's neat that we discover Special Olympics. Some people might discover it from some staff or volunteers or maybe a coach, but there's all different people, whether it's teachers, whether it's your husband or wife, or depending on whoever it is who introduced you to this organization, that introduced you to the movement that is Special Olympics. And people know, if listening to, I've been podcasting now for 13 years, all the past 13 years, people know for me how much it's impacted my life, and even from you and other athlete leaders that we have had on. I know some of our previous guests like Kira Byland and Renee and have also been a guest on your show. I don't know if you had Renee and my fellow SSI GM Hannah from Colorado. I don't know if you've had Hannah on your podcast, but
I don't think I've had her yet. I've had Amanda though. So.
Amanda was also on this podcast, but yeah, but you should definitely maybe think about having Hannah on your podcast.
That'd be fun. Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, there's all these different ways that we are introduced to the awesomeness that is the movement, the inclusion of revolution movement within Special Olympics. So there's a lot of things from, as you know, from our sports, health, leadership, and education programs that Special Olympics provides. Those of us with and people without intellectual disabilities. So what do you enjoy about your involvement with the movement that is Special Olympics?
I think that what I enjoy the most is just, getting a chance to meet all the different athletes and volunteers and, hearing their stories. As sometimes I feel like, before, it'd be like, oh, am I the only one struggling with this? But then when you go to a competition or you go to like an event that for athlete leadership thing, and you might do it with another athlete, then you hear their stories. Oh, I'm not the only one, struggling with this. So, but I also think, the connections that you also have, with media, and it gives a chance to, like you're doing with your podcast, telling people stories and getting the word out and basically saying, just because we have intellectual disabilities doesn't mean we can't be a part of society. So, yeah,
well, and I want to touch on that. I'm glad that you brought that up about really hearing people still within using the media. That kind of ties into something that I'm about to write, my July SSI Jam blog on I forgot the date, but coming up in a couple of weeks. Eunice Cunningham Shriver, founder of Special Olympics, celebrates her 100th birthday. I don't know if you knew that, but and one of the things I'll be writing about is how it's about her legacy, but how I myself and also encourage other people to follow in Mrs. Shriver's legacy of inclusion. And I was just talking with my mentor, my bag carrier, Chris, about that by myself podcasting for the past 13 years, using podcasts to tell stories, to share the stories. I'm bringing people to and making a difference and bringing people together with and without intellectual disabilities, and really spearheaded or really taking Mrs. Shriver's inclusion to the next level in making a difference in our society. And I believe maybe you can talk about that. How you as well. I mean, you're pretty new. Your podcast is only been around, I think, about a year, maybe less than a year.
Actually, less than that. I think we started in January, so probably 6 months. But
6 months.
You said, it's it gives us a chance to spearhead. The movement of what Eunice Kennedy Shriver kind of mentioned, and and it gets us. It's able for not just our community, but for us to broaden the horizons, and for people that may not know. That even though you have an intellectual disability, you could do, as much as you can. That's one of the reasons why, myself and my husband are looking forward to, doing stuff for USA Games next year in Orlando, because, it shows that, we can do, go to different events like that, and, we can get the word out, and, and like you were mentioning about writing, in your blog about it, that's one of our next topics that we're going to be talking about in our podcast in a couple of weeks, is about how there's the misinformation, we're misunderstood, especially during the pandemic. I mean, where you would hear about stories about seniors and people with high risk conditions, but you would never really hear about anybody in our population. So
yeah, and I'm glad that you brought that up. I feel like a lot of this we're on the same page, but you mentioned misunderstanding, and whenever I'm asked to speak, or whether it's a media interview, and people ask, how I got into podcasting, it's because of that misunderstanding. It's because of in the mainstream media, whether it's in podcasts or just in society overall. There's been a lot of misunderstanding for people like you and me, and a fellow over 23,000 athletes in Illinois, a fellow over 6 million Special Olympics athletes across the globe. There's a lot of misunderstanding for what we're able to do. A lot of times when people, whether it's invisible or visible, even if it's invisible, they might still see us struggle. They might still see us as having challenges, as seeing us with the disability label. And I think it's because of that misunderstanding that people like you and me, that we share these stories, these amazing stories, these voices, where we give a voice and share these voices and share these amazing stories to really break down the misunderstanding, break down those walls. I think that's something with the American with the Disabilities Act. Really break down the wall. Like, you see a white brick wall behind me. We really, what you and I have done, and not all have done, we all currently, even still today, we are breaking down the brick wall of misunderstanding and showing people how to better understand, how to better, we're able to really create understanding that will then lead to acceptance, and that then will then lead to inclusion. And that's how we can that's how we are making a difference, and that's how people can follow our lead as leaders. People can follow our example in breaking down that brick wall of misunderstanding. It doesn't have to be on a podcast. It could be, but it could be in some other platform. Just break down that follow Lisa and follow our lead, and maybe Lisa, you want to briefly touch on this, how we are breaking down that brick wall of misunderstanding to then create understanding that will then lead to acceptance, and then leads to inclusion. And that's how we have a better society.
Oh, and I definitely agree. I think, like you said, for the acceptance of breaking down walls, I know that there's a lot of times, like, my husband and I will go talk to give a presentation about something, and they're all, the audience or whatever, when they find out that we're married, but we also have intellectual disabilities, it's kind of like oh, really? I didn't know that, they're not used to that. So, So, I think that, like you said, with these podcasts, and, that's the main reason why I got mine going, is I wasn't able to physically work anymore. And I also wanted to give back too. And,
so you're able to do both. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm able to do both. And,
we have,
yeah.
Yeah, we have just I have some other things to get done today, so I don't want to keep you along as well. We still have some more stuff in this episode, so we'll quickly move on. And tell us just briefly, again, we don't have a lot of time before our next break, but tell us briefly. I'm going to kind of combine the next two things for this set to kind of wrap up this segment. As you know, I'm, along with our friend Eric Bauman, the co-chairs of our Athlete Leadership Council. You are the secretary, and so we're both on the executive leadership team of our Athlete Leadership Council for our statewide Special Olympics Illinois. Tell us briefly about that, being the secretary, and then kind of move into briefly about what does our athlete leadership programs and being an athlete leader mean to you.
Well, so being the secretary of, our state ALC, I sit on meetings, and, all the meetings we have, I always take notes, and then once we're done, I'll edit them and make sure they're right, and then I'll send them to you guys. But, again, and then, athlete leadership basically just means to me a way of giving back, and a way of, letting our voices be heard to, not just, and knowing that, Special Olympics isn't just about sports, it's about health, or it's about advocating for different things. So
Awesome. We're going to get into much more. We can talk more, but we're going to get into more now. Transition into your story, Lisa. Lisa's impactful story with the ComEd EnergyForce program is coming up after the break right here on SpecialChronicles.com. We'll be right back. Support for Special Chronicles comes from ComEd. Special Chronicles is proud to partner with the ComEd EnergyForce Ambassador Program. The EnergyForce is the country's first energy efficiency education program designed for and taught by people with disabilities. ComEd is powering lives and really is powering us here at Special Chronicles to keep the lights on and our technology is powered on. As ComEd powers the lives of us, they're literally giving a voice to people with special needs. We thank ComEd for the generous support of our mission at Special Chronicles. Learn more at SpecialChronicles.com/ComEd. That's SpecialChronicles.com/ComEd. And I hope you will go and really visit SpecialChronicles.com/ComEd, because ComEd is not only do they power lives, but they power the light and the technology to keep us podcasting and so we can make a difference in other people's lives. So thank you, ComEd. We are really grateful for your partnership. And we're back. Our guest is Lisa Noble, fellow ComEd EnergyForce Ambassador and athlete leader from Special Olympics Illinois. And now this is the segment where we get into how Special Olympics and how you are partnering with the ComEd EnergyForce Ambassador Program. Let's get into tell us about how and when you I guess more first, and how Special Olympics first got involved. Special Olympics Illinois first got involved in partnering with the ComEd EnergyForce Ambassador Program, and as well as how and when you first got involved. Oh, I should unmute you, Lisa. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay, Danny. So, how long Special Olympics Illinois has been involved, I'm not 100% sure, but I know that ComEd's been, together for 10 years. So, and how I got involved was a former staff member that no longer works for Special Olympics Illinois reached out to me because her son had done it previously and wasn't interested in continuing. So she asked if I wanted to, become a member of the program, and I rushed at the chance. So
awesome. Tell us now about what you enjoy about the partnership with the ComEd EnergyForce. There's a lot of things that you can enjoy, and I'm sure even some of the athlete leadership programs that and training that you have been involved in maybe directly impacts the work that you do as an EnergyForce ambassador. But what do you enjoy about this partnership with the ComEd EnergyForce Ambassador Program?
So what I really enjoy about the partnership is that they're reaching out to people with intellectual disabilities to help market, saving energy. And then, like you had said, the athlete leadership kind of comes in, like when we go to different events. So, it's able to, again, kind of put those two together, like when I interact with people or
Awesome.
or something like that.
Awesome. Well, let's now get into pre-COVID. 2 years ago, we were doing in-person events, and I think that was, buddy, your first, because this is my fourth year as an EnergyForce ambassador, but this is your third year?
Third year.
Third year, and this is my fourth year. So you started just a little bit after me. So is there, whether it's an in-person event or an online digital engagement, and you could say other ambassadors have said that this podcast is their favorite digital engagement. You don't have to say that. I'm not, again, folks, I don't feed it for this question. I don't feed answers to the guests. You guys come up on your own. But do you have a favorite memory from an in-person event, either and or an online digital engagement? that we've been doing this year, 2021, as a ComEd EnergyForce Ambassador Program?
Yeah, so for the in-person event, I really enjoyed. I did one that was like a concert in the park downtown, and I really enjoyed that because you know, you kind of, I was engaging with the audience, and sometimes, like, even if they weren't ComEd, customers or whatever, I try to still have kind of a conversation with them, to especially if they were visiting from out of town. And then I think a virtual one would be, I think, when you and I had done that presentation. What was it, last year? Yeah. So.
Yeah, that video, which in the next sponsor break that we're just about to get to, that's good. I feel like having another podcast on, you kind of know how it is to go to do a good transition from one topic to another, and in this case, one segment right into the last sponsor break, which is that 2-minute video of energy efficiency tips. So with that, let's just go right into the sponsor break. Our guest is Lisa Noble, fellow ComEd EnergyForce Ambassador and athlete leader from Special Olympics Illinois. We'll get into some final thoughts and advice, and talking about a question I always conclude these conversations with after this final break. Lisa's back with story continues after the break right here on SpecialChronicles.com. We'll be right back.
Hi, my name is Lisa Noble, and I'm a ComEd EnergyForce Ambassador and an athlete with Special Olympics Illinois.
Hi, my name is Daniel Spakowski, and I also am a ComEd EnergyForce Ambassador and founder of a company called Special Chronicles.
The ComEd EnergyForce Program is a program that hires people with disabilities to teach the public how to save energy and money.
It's the country's first energy efficiency program of its kind.
Saving energy is especially important while everyone is at home due to COVID-19. We're using more electricity than ever before. Just think about how many more times you are opening the refrigerator door these days.
And while the economy is stressed, it's more critical than ever to save money where we can. Following these tips can save energy and money in this time of COVID-19.
Wash your clothes in cold water and use the dryer sparingly.
Your dryer can take up to 7 times more energy than the washer.
Turn off and unplug any electrical devices or power strips you are not using.
Electrical devices can continue to zap power even when turned off if they're still plugged in. We call them vampire devices.
Use LED bulbs.
They use 25% less energy than incandescent bulbs and last up to 25 times longer, saving you lots of money over time.
Keep your refrigerator between 35 and 38 degrees.
And be sure to use Energy Star appliances.
And last but not least, check out ComEd.com/home savings for more tips and rebates.
Lisa and I would like to thank you for taking the time to listen to us today.
Remember, we are all in this together.
Stay healthy.
And stay safe.
Bye. Now, our guest on the Special Chronicles show this week is our friend and your friend Lisa Noble, fellow ComEd EnergyForce Ambassador from Special Olympics Illinois. Welcome back, Lisa.
Thank you.
And now this is the point, this final segment where we get into some plugs for you and Special Olympics Illinois. And I mean, I think I know some of the answers, but first share with our listeners how they can connect with you and subscribe to your podcast, as well as get involved and follow Special Olympics Illinois on social media website and social media plugs for you, your podcast, and the organization that you're involved with.
Sure. So to get involved in my podcast, you can go to our Facebook group, Facebook page. It's Amazing Individuals. Or you can go on my Twitter page, which is L Noble, and at Twitter. Or I also have a regular Facebook page you can reach me at. And then for Special Olympics, if you're interested in getting involved or getting more information, just go to the website. It's soill.org, and I'll give you plenty of information.
Awesome. So once again, that is at L Noble L NOBLE 4653 is Lisa's social media handle. We'll put links in the show notes. I should, hopefully. We want to put links, but you guys just go follow at L Noble 4653 on social media. And if you want to subscribe to Lisa's podcast, SpecialChronicles.com/amazing individuals, and on whole podcast page on this network, we have direct links to how you can follow whole podcast on Instagram and Facebook, and find it on Apple Podcasts and wherever you get your podcasts. And then as well, Special Olympics Illinois, SOILL.org, all of those social media links, and how you can get involved as an athlete, coach, volunteer, unified partner, a lot of different ways to get involved. So SOILL.org is where you can go to get involved. And with that, I always let's get some of our plugs out of the way as well. You want to follow myself, Daniel, what I'm doing when I'm not behind the microphone, at Podmandan, PODMANDAN, at Podmandan, on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn. You can just follow at Podmandan, PODMANDAN, at Podmandan. And you can follow Special Chronicles on social media at Special Chronicles. Just go to SpecialChronicles.com, SpecialChronicles.com, to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. We're now on Snapchat and TikTok. Somebody will have to show me how to use some of those. But SpecialChronicles.com is also where you can go to subscribe to our newsletter. We'll send you updates about our podcasts and blogs and live shows, and just go and subscribe to our mailing list. And also remember to subscribe or follow whatever you do with these podcasts to all of our podcasts on this network on SpecialChronicles.com/shows. Just go to SpecialChronicles.com, click on podcasts, and you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, the iHeartRadio app, and wherever you get your podcasts. And please also share this episode with all your friends, and share this episode and all of our podcast episodes with your friends and family. Help us grow our audience, reaching 5,000 downloads of audio podcasts and 24,000 average monthly listeners. And with that, I usually try to conclude a lot of these conversations with one question that we'll get to in just a few moments. But first, the question that I always conclude with, we'll get to in just a few more moments from now. Firstly, Lisa, what advice would you give to our fellow 23,000 Special Olympics Illinois athletes to join our athlete leadership programs?
I would just say that, athlete, if you want to get more involved in the organization, then, look at getting into athlete leadership. It's, it's changed my life. It's giving me more self-esteem, and kind of just giving me a better outlook, and it's giving me a platform to kind of share my story. So if you want to do something other than just compete, I would definitely encourage everyone to do something with athlete leadership. So.
Awesome. Well, great plug. I could probably, I do as an athlete leader echo everything. And as the Southern Tribal International Global Metro, the highest athlete leadership role within the movement, echo everything that you said. Before we get to that final question, that I always include the conversation with, before we get to that, any final thought on your overall time here today on the Special Chronicles show that you want to share with our listeners?
I think that I want to thank you for having me. I mean, it was a great pleasure, but I think, like you've said before, I think, both of our shows kind of help get the word out, and advocate for people with intellectual disabilities. And I think that, it's always going to be a movement, but I think we're kind of getting closer to getting acceptance.
Yeah. And as we all know, inclusion, and the inclusion revolution is a big part of the whole movement of Special Olympics. It's a big inclusion. It's also a big part here at Special Chronicles, as well as with your podcast and all the podcasts that I do on this network. So I always conclude these conversations with talking about what does inclusion mean to you. We get a lot of different answers from our guests. And so I'm always, and even sometimes occasionally, like if I'm interviewing Mark Shriver at a World Games in Abu Dhabi, I'll even sometimes pull in my answer to that question, or somebody takes over as host of this podcast program. I will give my answer, but I'm not going to do that this week, you guys. Maybe I'll bring in my answer again on another episode in the future. But in the meantime, Lisa, what does inclusion mean to you?
Inclusion means to me a couple things, but the main thing is just acceptance. Being inclusive in not just employment, but just in your community alone. So that's basically what it means to me. Awesome,
great thought, great message, and to conclude. And with that, that's a wrap on this episode of the Special Chronicles Show. As a reminder, the Special Chronicles Show is presented by the ComEd EnergyForce Ambassador Program. Learn more about the nation's first energy efficiency education program, taught by people with disabilities, including video resources, an original podcast series, and external resource links at SpecialChronicles.com/ComEd. Again, that's SpecialChronicles.com/ComEd. And help us fund our weekly podcasts and live shows on Special Chronicles so we can continue to tell empowering and impactful stories behind the microphone to further our mission and vision, giving respect and voice to people with special needs. Please join our community supporters. Make a gift today at SpecialChronicles.com/give. Any gift, whether it's $5 or $25 or $250, however much, donate right now. SpecialChronicles.com/give so we can continue to be behind the microphone. And finally, SpecialChronicles.com is where you can go to follow Special Chronicles on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Snapchat, TikTok. Subscribe to our newsletter. Remember to subscribe and follow, do what you do with these podcasts, and rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, the iHeartRadio app, and wherever you get your podcasts, so you never miss a new episode. We have new episodes coming to you weekly right here on SpecialChronicles.com. Please also, if you have been impacted by Lisa's story, please share this episode and all our podcast episodes with your friends and family so we can continue to grow our audience. Help us grow our audience, reaching over 5,000 downloads of audio podcasts and over 24,000 average monthly listeners. Please, if you have been impacted by Lisa's story, please donate right now. SpecialChronicles.com/give. Again, that's SpecialChronicles.com/give. If you've been impacted by Lisa's story, help us continue to share more stories. Thank you, Lisa, for coming on the podcast this week.
Well, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
And we'll see you all next week. We'll be bringing you a rebroadcast of the second ever Voices of Champions talks that was originally recorded back in May. But we'll be bringing that to you next week, July 5th. We'll be going on a virtual vacation down to the Caribbean, up to Canada, and across the United States with 8 Special Olympics athlete leaders. So all that is coming up after the break, right? Well, at the outro, we will hear a teaser for that after the break. So in it, I want to remind you all to stay safe and remember, choose to include. We'll see you next week.
Special Chronicles, giving respect and a voice to people with special needs.
In August 2021.
Manfredi, so we're going from Jamaica all the way across country over to Hawaii.
To give a speech for Voices of Champions, I asked myself, what could I share with you today? What could I give that might help you in your life journey? I looked at my own life for what has really helped me on my journey. And the thing that changed my life was finding my voice and learning how to use it. This is called advocacy.
So please go and subscribe to the Special Chronicles show on Apple Podcasts, the iHeartRadio app, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. And I'll see you on the show.